So, again, ran out of room on my. We're getting new phones at some point from work, so we'll see what 128 gig does. See how many videos I can make then without filling up the space. I just added another column to my spreadsheet. I had the theme, the set number, the name, the storage, the number of sets stored in totes and numbers sets in the layout. I'm gonna add another column I'm just probably gonna add this to storage, whatever, because there's only a few classic space sets in here. But what I did do is I added the release date of these sets. And I did that basically the same as the table runners because I wanted to keep them organized. Now, these aren't exact because what I did is basically I wanted each theme to stay together because there's overlap between Classic Space and Futron. There's overlap between Futron and Mtron, or Blacktron 1. There's overlap between Blacktron 1 and Space Police 1. But what I did do is like all 3-digit sets came out in 1978, even though they didn't, because some 3-digit sets came out in 1979. Don't care. 1978, that's when I put it down. So all 3-digit sets. And then Classic Space 4-digit sets started in 1980 because that's when, the geological inspection came out, the mineral detector, the 6861 X1 patrol craft. So 1980, those ones I kept pretty good accurate until 1986. So 1980 to 1986 is 4-digit Classic Space sets. A few showed up in 1987, according to Lugnet. But what I did is I put those in 1986 as well because Futron starts in 1987, and I don't want Classic Space being mixed with Futron for the sake of this list. So Futron's 1987. And then right after Futron is Blacktron, the very next year, 1988. Again, there was still some Futron sets released then, but whatever. Blacktron, there was a few sets released in 1986, 1970, 1988. But I said 1988 for Blacktron 1, 1989 for Space Police 1, 1990 for Mtron, 1991 for Blacktron 2, 1991 for Blacktron 2, 1992 for Space Police 2, 1993 for Ice Planet, 94 for Spirius, 95 for Unitron, 96 for Explorians, 97 for UFO, and 1998 for Insectoids. Insectoids was the last one in that range from 6880 to 6991. Again, this is not even counting RoboForce, because RoboForce doesn't have any sets between 6880 and 6991. They have a whole different numbering sequence, just like Life on Mars, Mars Missions, and of course Space Police 3, and Galaxy Squad, and whatever else were out there that I hardly have any of, because I wasn't that interested. So, I am a man of what I like. But I always forget, in my era of me acquiring all these sets, Insectoids was the last one released. And because I always thought it was Unitron, but then again, I keep on forgetting. I remember that the 1994 monorail, the 6991, came out in 1994, which is far before 1998. And in 1998, I was starting to go on the Lugnet in 1998, 1999, and found the Shop and Home specials for sets that wouldn't sell. I guess they had overstock. And I bought the Arachnid Starbase, the Insectoids, from Shop and Home for like $25 or $50. It was stupid cheap. I bought 2 of them. And so I should have remembered that Insectoids, and I couldn't get the other sets because they were discontinued or whatever years before. So I should have thought about it a little harder by realizing that Insectoids was the very last theme released between the set number 6880 to 6991. And then RoboForce showed up in a whole completely different range of space numbering, and then Life on Mars showed up in a different line. And this is not even counting the light and sound ones, which is 6720s or something like that. So for me, the peak of space, peak Lego, basically, 6880 to 6991. Everything else outside of that is still good, but not as good as that range there, because in that range you have the Uniranium Search Vehicle, you have the Monorail Transportation Base, Futron, you have the Galaxy Commander, you have the Cosmic Fleet Voyager, you have such, and that range of set number 6880. Now there's some duds in there too. What are you gonna do about that? But overall, I did reviews on all of them, and they all have a place in my heart for being awesome. And yes, we can look back even more nostalgically at the 3-digit sets, but those are just askew everywhere. We venerate the 928, the Galaxy Explorer. It is a fantastic set, and of course they re-released it, 10/4/97. But classic space, going from 1970 or 1980 to 1986, we'll say 1987. There's so many fantastic sets in there, and they don't adhere to any standard color palette like what happened afterwards. Now again, the original 6-digit set or 3-digit sets adhered to a standard color palette, blue and gray. That was it. After that, 1980, the Starfleet Voyager showed up. The Starfleet Voyager is not like anything that happened before 1981, I think 1982. The Starfleet Voyager showed up because it was white, trans dark blue, and gray. So it wasn't like it didn't look. I mean, I did recolorize it once with the classic space colors, the original 3-digit colors, and I didn't mind the look of it. But I can see why they went with white instead of blue. And I see why they went with dark blue instead of trans dark blue instead of trans yellow. But then the very next year, the year after that, they showed up with the 6890 and 6980, the Galaxy Commander and the 6890, which looked nothing like the Starfleet Voyager. Like they went from one year to the next year, and then the next year after that, they dropped that blue, trans dark blue, and white for something else. And so there was no good consistency across the board of classic space after 1979. There wasn't, and it's to me it's kind of sad, because when Futuron and all the rest of the themes came out, there was solid cohesiveness, and they're spectacular in their cohesiveness. The color palette that they used in let's take example Ice Planet is a fantastic color scheme. But Futuron, classic space, 1980 to 1986, threw that out the window. That's whatever. Overall, there was some consistency. But let's just take straight up. You got the FX Star Patroller and the Gamma 5. So those are two comparable sets. They both come apart in the middle. They have a nice cockpit section. They have the back section. One's trans green and one's trans dark blue. Why? It made no sense. And they were released 1 year after another. Like this is Gamma 5. Let me just see where the Gamma 5 is in this grand scheme of things. I think that Gamma 5 came out first. Classic space, Gamma 5. Let me just sort by set number. Gamma 5, that's going to be 6-8 or 6-9 something. I should just sort by whatever. I should have been ready for this, and I am tired. I'm getting more tired as the FX Star Patroller 6931 and the Gamma 5. I thought it'd be right above that. ISAT 5? Are they that far apart? Where are they? Oh, Gamma 5. 6891 came out in 1985, and the FX Star Patroller came out in 1985. So they show up the same year. It's like, come on. And the same year, you pick different cockpit colors. Like, I just love you dearly. The FX Star would the FX Star Patroller look good in trans green? I don't think so. It looks good in trans. Of course, the rest of the ship has trans dark blue in it too, so maybe that's it. But the Gamma 5, I don't know. I just found it very, very odd. There was no sense of cohesiveness in classic space, even in the same year they're releasing sets. Even in the same year they're releasing sets, there is no the first 3 digits cohesive, fantastic, and then let's go back to the date for classic space, because then 1980. I like 1980, by the way. 1980 gave us the geological inspection, mineral detector, X1 patrol craft. The X1 is just out of this world. And the X1 fits more with the original 3 digits because it's just gray. That's fantastic. Although again, it has a trans green brick on it, not a trans yellow. So, mobile lab trans green. Okay, so the trans green and the X1 and the mobile lab had trans green. And then the Beta 1 command center. There's no trans green anywhere. It's trans yellow. It's like going back to this 3 digits again, because the blue building, even the little ship on the Beta 1 has trans yellow and it's gray and whatever, but it has the white and black engines on it, whatever. The rocket sled, whatever, space shuttle, whatever, shuttlecraft. But I'm going into, I think, 1982. Yeah, 1982. Cosmic Cruiser 6890 and the Galaxy Commander 6980, just transpose the digits, perfectly cohesively together. They trans dark blue, the wing structures are the same, white, fantastically looking the same, like they came from the same fleet. And that's it. They could have ran with that, and they did. The 6950 came out in 1982. Wait, 82 is a great year. Let's see, the surface transport, okay, whatever. That's 83. We're already in 83. When did the Beta 1 come out? 1980. Oh, the Beta 1 came out 2 years before these guys came out. That's fine. So 80, the Beta 1 comes out. 81, the Starfleet Voyager shows up. 81, which looks nothing like anything else. And then 82, they do the Cosmic Cruiser and the Galaxy Commander. It's like, guys, give your head a shake. And then it just goes on. Oh, the Space Supply Station that came out in 83, if I remember correctly, that kind of looked like the Cosmic, the 6890 and 6980, because it was white, blue, and trans dark blue. The Galaxy Commander, 1983. Well, I thought they showed up in the same year. Whatever. Surface rover, nothing. Space Dart, Benny's first spaceship. No trans blue. No trans anything. Space Dart. Robot Command Center, trans yellow again. They went back to trans yellow for the screens. 6971 Intergalactic Command Base, trans yellow again. So the Robot Command Center and the Intergalactic Command Base, same year, fantastic. Blue, fantastic. Trans yellow. So those are kind of cohesive, I guess. Although they have fundamentally different building styles, but they're fine. Let's see, we get the Astro, the Surface Hopper, Space Scooter, Cosmic Comet, Crater Crawler, Space Dozer. Really, 1985? Wow. I remember getting that. So I got that before 1985. Walking Astro Glapper, the walking grapple thing. What's it called again? Walking Astro Grappler, the bad guy's vehicle in the Lego Wars. Blue, trans yellow, blue, trans yellow, and gray. Would fit perfectly with the original 3-digit numbers. So, the Gamma 5, trans green, we talked about that. FX Star Patroller, trans dark blue. Solar Power Transporter, trans green. Twin Starfire, trans blue. Space Scooter, Mobile Command Center. I can't remember that one. The XT Starship, now we're into the Light and Sound. But the XT. Okay, the 3 Light and Sound sets, cohesive. They're white with trans. Well, the robot didn't have any trans at all, but white and trans dark blue. Space Galaxy Tracker X5 and Droid, Starfire, Stratus Scooter, Cosmic Charger, Satellite Patroller, Moon Rover, Terrestrial, Mobile Modular Space Transport, Mobile Recovery Vehicle, Alien Moonstalker, gray and trans green. And then the Polaris Space Lab, trans dark blue and white. What has been trans dark blue and white since we started talking about this? Starfleet Voyager, but that's gray too. Yeah, it's just, again, a hodgepodge of different colors. And then the Cosmic Fleet Voyager, which looks nothing like the Polaris base. Cosmic Fleet, going back to trans yellow. I don't think it would look good with trans dark blue. I think it looks fantastic with trans yellow. Again, that's what I'm used to. So changing the colors now, Like, would I have liked it if it showed up in trans dark blue? I don't know. And then Futurons, all trans dark blue, white, and black. And then you get into Blacktron, black, yellow, and trans yellow. Fantastic. And then Space Police 1, black, blue, and trans dark red, or trans red. Mtron, red, black, and trans neon green. Blacktron 2, white, black, and trans neon green. The neon green shows up a lot. Space Police 2, gray, red, black, and trans green. Yes, I remember that for a sec. Ice Planet, completely different, white, blue, and trans neon orange. Spirius and Expire, black, red, and trans dark blue. I guess I couldn't care. Trans red maybe. Explorians, white, black, and trans dark blue, and trans neon green. More trans neon green. UFO, gray, black, and trans neon green. Insectoids, whatever you want to call it, dark gray, blue, black, and trans neon green, and trans green, both. Yeah, so the one out of all that is the 4-digit classic space sets, which were not cohesive. Everything else, the 3-digit sets and all the other themes, were very cohesive. And again, they were just releasing sets in classic space because they didn't have a theme to work with. And I'm glad the one thing that Futuron did fantastically well is to show that you could have a cohesive theme for the year and release sets that fit into that. And that's what you would expect when you're building a sub theme of space, that they would have the same look and feel to them, even though they're different sets, ships and vehicles and bases and blah blah blah. And yeah, I think overall, when you think about it, 1978 to 1986, so that's 8 years basically, 8 or 9 years of just classic space going over. Now again, it's 1978, 1979 into 1980. It was exactly the same 3-digit sets. Then 1980 showed up, and then they brought out the 4-digit sets that were basic in their structure. X1 patrol craft, basic pieces that you could have had in 1978. There was nothing new there. But then they started building on it. The Starfleet Voyager showing up, and all the others. I could have sworn the Starfleet Voyager showed up well before the Beta 1, but that's not what this says. I'll have to look at it again. Let's just search it up. Starfleet Voyager with Captain Janeway. Starfleet Voyager. I love Lugnet. 1981. So I think I wrote down the wrong date here. Because 1981, Starfleet Voyager, that is 6929. That's the number I got actually memorized. I don't have too many numbers memorized. 6929. Scroll on the night, 6929. I don't know how I got this date wrong. 6929. I did say 1981. And the Beta 1 came out in 1980. Well, Beta-1. This is me looking things up. Waste my time. 1980. So the Beta 1 showed up before the Starfleet Voyager. I would have bet good money it didn't. I would have bet good money that the Beta 1 came out after Starfleet Voyager. I thought Starfleet Voyager came out the very first 4-digit set year, 1980. But clearly I'm wrong. So in the end, I gotta stop yapping about this stuff. I like this kind of minutiae. And again, I want to be very, very crystal clear. I have 4 totes. 4. Un, deux, trois, quatre. I have 4 totes of classic space in my garage, and only one of them is 3-digit sets. The other 3 are 4-digit sets. So out of literally all the themes, I have more classic space sets than any other theme. Now again, classic space ran for 8 years, so I'm gonna have more. And the rest of the themes lasted 1, 2, maybe 3. There's a few that they released sets after me drinking again. Figures. I dented that thing years ago. So yeah, 8 years of pumping out sets. of course you're going to have lots. But out of all the duplicates I have more duplicates in Classic Space than I have in any most other themes. And that's because Classic Space is awesome. And again, when I say Classic Space in this context, I mean 1978 to 1986. So let's look at the top three: Cosmic Cruiser, Surface Explorer, and one main ship. And then Galaxy Explorer. My top four most duplicate sets are Classic Space, and it's 13, 10, 6, and 6. And then I have 13, 12, 9, and 9. And then there's the Mtron Beacon Tracer, which is just because I got lots. And then Classic Space again. Radar Truck, Mobile Rocket Launcher, Galaxy Commander, Space Transport 924, Shuttlecraft, All-Terrain Vehicle, Robot Command Center. And then you have to go to like number 12 to find an actual, or 13, before Galactic Peacekeeper, Space Police 1. So my top 10, of forgetting the Beacon Tracer, because that's just because I happen to have a bunch the other day and I reconstituted because I wanted to. I didn't have that before. So my top 12 number of sets that I have are Classic Space. Okay, so they've been around the longest too. And again, I started collecting back when I was 13. So I mean, the only thing you could collect back then was Classic Space because that's all there was to collect. And of course, I like Classic Space. I've been doing Classic Space layouts since 2000, whatever. And so when I do see a Classic Space lot, and again, this context, 1978 to 1986, actual Classic Space, that's what I'm going to get. That's what I focused on. And that's what I focused on my entire life. That's why I have more light gray, more Greek wing plates, more trans yellow than anything else in this entire room, basically, because I love Classic Space. And it's my youth. Yes, it's mostly a nostalgic thing. My curiosity, my imagination was piqued. I mean, I've always loved Lego, even before these things came out. But getting the 918 for Christmas that year, boom, like it was fantastic. So if Classic Space didn't happen, what other theme would I choose? I mentioned this to somebody else the other day. There is a very, very, it's hard to define besides the color palette, the demarcation between Space Police 1, Mtron, Space Police 2, and Ice Planet. It's very, very hard to say. No, between Space Police 1 and Ice Planet, a lot more different pieces came out, straight up, understood. So Space Police, when you're building in the Space Police 1 set, and it has a lot more, I won't say rudimentary, but a lot more basic pieces, whereas Ice Planet, there's a lot more modified plates in it, a lot more really cool things. But to recolorize an Ice Planet to Space Police, and to recolorize the Space Police to Ice Planet, they look, the building techniques, the shape, the look, the feel of them are identical. If you're 100% colorblind, like I could be, they would look identical. UFO looks radically different. Insectoids is out of the park different. Spirius could be, if you squint hard enough, the same. But those four themes, Space Police 1, Mtron, what did I say? Ice Planet and Blacktron 2. Just Blacktron 1's even different than those four themes. Those four themes look like they were, I won't say carbon copies of one another, but they feel the same. And the building style is the same, and the cockpits are the same, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of similarities between all four of those themes, besides the piece changes as the years go by. And I would have a tough time choosing between which one I would want to focus on if Classic Space wasn't around. I can say right off the top, Futron doesn't make the list. And that's not a disparage to Futron. It's just, it wasn't my favorite theme. UFO, which I do love, but I wouldn't make it. I would not be, I want to make a huge UFO layout. Ice Planet, I would absolutely adore to make a huge Ice Planet layout. I would think it's the best thing in the world to make a huge Ice Planet layout. The problem is they didn't come up with base plates besides the raised base plate. And I do have, actually I don't have any 32 by 32 white base plates. So I would have a tough time with that. Mtron, it's an utterly fantastic theme, including especially the particle items, but across the board, all sets except for the capital ship are top drawer. All of them are top drawer. They're all fantastic in Mtron. Um, but I can say the same with Ice Planet. They're all fantastic. Space Police 1, they are all, every Space Police set is fantastic. And Blacktron 2, it doesn't have all the fantastic sets, but it has a lot of fantastic sets, and it does have base plates, landing pads. I got a bunch of them, so I could do a Blacktron 2 layout pretty easy. It would be a small one, but I have enough black raised and landing pads and tees to build a nice little layout. I would have no problem doing that, but I would probably err on the side of and to be said, the black light is better on trans neon green than it is in trans neon orange for me, for a colorblind person. So Ice Planet does look great underneath black light, but the trans neon green of Blacktron 2 looks a lot better. So and when I'm doing shows now, I look for the wow factor, right? And the trans neon green, like that's why I put this thing trans neon green. That's why there's trans neon green in there, because it's the wow factor. It just shows up fantastic underneath the black light. It's like, wow, you're just blown away. And there's that one, a friend of mine, I won't mention his name, that did an entire alien space world layout with a monorail going through it using trans. And so when the lights are on, it looks magnifique, and then you turn out the lights and you put the black light on. It's like, oh my goodness, it's like just blows me away every time I watch the video and watch the lights go out and you see all the doodads and all the one by one round plates and blah, and it just glows, and it just absolutely glows, and it's like a spectacularly awesome visual display, and I'm just fantastic. Trans neon colors with black light is just a chef's kiss on shows and layouts. So if Classic Space wasn't around, it'd be one of those four. It wouldn't be Futuron. It wouldn't be UFO, even though UFO would be awesome. It would not be RoboForce at all. It wouldn't be Spirius, and it would not be Unitron. Unitron only had 4 sets-ish, if you want to even call it that. It would either be Space Police, Mtron, Blacktron 2, or Ice Planet. And I would have a tough time picking one of those. I would possibly say, because I would err on the side of adventure and exploration more than policing and bad guys. And so I would probably err on the Mtron overall. I do like the red. I do like the black, and I do like the trans neon green of Mtron, and I honestly do, and I keep on saying this, the particle ionizer is a set in and of itself, one of the best sets in the entire line that Lego's ever put out. And again, that's my favorite set in the Mtron line. But then you also got the Megacore Magnetizer. Like, oh my goodness, it's just from a distance you want to see this thing. and that's the second I saw it in the store in the big box and the picture in the front, I'm going, oh my goodness, like the Beta 1 looked great on the box, the Interstellar whatever base looked fine. The monorail looked great because it's a huge box that I remember buying. But the Megacore Magnetizer, when you walk into the store at the time and you saw that big box with the Megacore Magnetizer on the front cover, it's like, what? I gotta own this. Like, I have to own this. Of course I did. But even every other set except for the capital ship is just inspirational. Even the little tiny ship, it's just, for the number of like 6 pieces in it, it's a fantastic little tiny set. But Mtron is, I would probably, with those 4 themes, I'd probably go with Mtron. And then on top of that is just, again, the bias that I've seen some really, in the past 10 years, some really awesome Mtron displays on videos at brick festivals. Mtron seems to be able to, people seem to want to make a fantastically huge and detailed display of an Mtron mock-up of an Mtron universe. and it's wonderful. Look it up. Just go to YouTube, type in Mtron. I haven't done it, but there's Mtron videos. There's some really nice Mtron layouts out there, displays. I'm just with Classic Space because that was my first love, shall we say. At the time, it was my only love for Lego, for that kind of thing. And so I've mentioned this, and I say this at shows all the time. And again, I've said it in this video again. My first Classic Space set was the 918. It was lovely. I had many adventures with it. And then I got 4 more space sets next year, a year after, whenever I got them. And then I started buying my own. And I have my own little layout on my ping pong table. I mentioned that before, just recently, and how devastated I was that the sun completely damaged the white. But in my head, in this noggin here, in my head, since 1978, when I got that set, the 918, there was a visual in my head, because I watched Space 1999 already. I saw Star Trek already. TNG hadn't started yet. But Battlestar was started in 1978, 1979, and I love Battlestar. And then Buck Rogers a year after that, and then the movies like Star Wars, blah blah. Like I was a huge world building universe building in my head. I read all the science fiction books, Asimov and Clarke, well before then. So I had to get this little 918, and I'm flying it through the house, and there's adventures in my head. I'm like 12. 11 years old, and I have a story already detailed in my head, and a universe in my head of what I wanted, and then I seriously mean this. I don't know why it never clued into me. I have no idea to this day why it wasn't even clued into me that I could do a Classic Space layout at a show. We were doing robot competitions for almost literally a decade. Like literally almost a decade. We started doing train shows. We were doing the hobby show, and people were just filling up the tables with stuff. Good friend Jason bringing the Discovery and all the other stuff from 2001, and then Greg Hyland shows up with that booklet, like homage to the booklet by putting the space sets out where the booklet showed, and I go in. We can do Classic Space. we can bring a Classic Space layout display. Are you kidding me? Like, I had already pre-internet been gathering Classic Space. Like it was like I made the movie in 1984. It's like Pete, Jake, and I made that movie in 1984. It's like I can't to this day even understand why my brain didn't even think about it until Greg showed up with his little homage to Classic Space, and then the gloves are off. The veil is lifted. whatever euphemism you want to know. And the very next show, boom, layout, and then evolve from there. And I do go into details when people are talking, because they say how, and I'm going, look. In 2007, 2006, 2007, Jeff and I did the very first layout. And my 918's there, anyway. And that was just ad hoc. And then we did a whole bunch of ad hocs 3 or 4 times a year. Ending with the square, which was massively huge. But it was right after the square where we started, let's make something consistent so we can put a building there and it'll be the same building that's always going to be there. And I started designing that. And then 2010, I designed a building that was this tall. So it was just this front door here, this little piece here, and it was an identical piece in the back, and 2 landing pads. That was it. It was like 4 stories tall. It was like nothing. And people, oh, that's really cool. I said, no, it's not. And again, I had no end state in mind. And I mentioned this before. What I had in mind is I had to have raised landing pads. Straight up, I had to have raised. It can't just be underground. I had to have raised landing pads. And I had to have an observation deck akin to 2001: A Space Odyssey. and it had to be a tower-ish looking thing. Empire Strikes Back, kind of, I mentioned that before, but the landing pads had to be away from the station proper, and all that stuff. And over the next course of 3 or 4 years of rebuilding and modifying and changing and rebuilding and blah, 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 I got to the point where it had the command center for flight ops, And people go, oh, it's done now, right? Because the same people be at all the shows I was doing. Oh, Dave, that's a fantastic edition. Oh, that looks great. This is it now, right? You can go on and do it. I said, it wasn't done yet. It didn't look right to me at all yet until I put the cake topper on it. And then the second I put the cake topper on it, and I stepped back and I looked at it, I said, now it's done. But up until the cake topper was on it, I had literally no idea when it was going to be done or what it was going to look like when it was done. So that's my whole point on this part of this tangent. If you're building something and you think you have to go somewhere with it, that there's an end state, this thing got modified 1 billion times before I actually stepped back and said, oh, I like it. And I did not want to put like an end state. Oh, you got 2 years to build it and then you're done. Whatever happens in 2 years, that's the way it's going to look. No. No. And if you have an end state in your head of where you want to be, that's perfect too, by the way. And you get there and you go, well, because how many times has this happened to everybody? You have an idea, you think it's going to be awesome. You get there and it's, not as awesome as you think. And you're looking at it, well, do I start over? What? Like, just keep on plugging at it. Like I tore this thing right back down to its basic pieces so many times before I built it up again and like modify this, change that. And of course, the bigger it gets, the longer it takes to undo something to go rebuild. And especially this whole part here with the landing pads. That took 17 tries before I could get it. And then I modified them the end of January last year. So this thing was around since 2011. So I had it for 14 years. And I fixed it last year because it's still not done. But it's done. The look of it is done, and I do want to greeble it a little bit more. But you just keep on plugging away until you step back and you look at it and you say, "Oh, there it is." It was in my head the entire time, and that's perfectly acceptable. And because the whole point is, first of all, to have fun. There's no pressure. There's nobody saying, "Oh, you have to finish this in a week." It's not like a book report or like something's due at work that you have to submit. I took my time on that thing, and I rebuilt it so many times. And because I wanted to do it this way, I didn't have any problem with the time I put into it. I put a lot of time into it, and a lot of people wouldn't want to put that time into it, but I did, and I'm happy I did. And it got to the point where I was happy. And then complete, and yet I keep on saying it is complete as it is, but there's room for improvement, right? Because now I have to make it better, stronger, faster, hardier, blah blah blah. And so I do it. It's not finished, but the look of it is exactly what I wanted, but I didn't know that until I finished it. So I don't know how to explain it any better. That's it. That's all. I had fun today. I had fun. And part of me had fun looking at all the sets I have. Part of me was screaming in my head, we have to get rid of a lot of them. So I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to upload this. I just created, I'm going to create a PDF. I'm going to send it to friends and family. And we're going to go from there. This is just the start. And we'll see how far it goes. I'll keep you guys posted. You guys stay safe. Take care.